I don't know how many people are following you or how many people like your page on Facebook, but what you can do, just go right underneath this video and share this video to the rest of your community so that they can also keep abreast of what's happening in the newspapers this morning. All right, if you're ready, I definitely am too. All right, in the papers this morning, NLC says no further fuel increase. That's in the Punch newspaper this morning. Also this morning in the papers, we're going to be looking at some very interesting news stories from the Punch newspaper as well. Here's an interesting news story. No work, no pay. Health workers demand payment. Says we're okay with this, but you can't opt out if you wish. Okay, apparently workers' salaries have been withheld. This is something that's very happens often in this part of the world. But here, Nigerian Union of Allied Health Professionals have asked the federal government to pay withheld salaries of its members in various federal health institutions to avoid an industrial crisis in the health sector of the nation. The demand was contained in a communique issued at the end of its National Executive Council meeting in Abuja, signed by the acting chairman, Comrade Uche Okafor, and the General Secretary, Martin Egbanubi. The health workers who accused the federal government of being selective in the implementation of the no work, no pay policy during strike action said that the government had refused to pay health workers while members of the NMA were paid. It continues and says the NEC observed with dismay the selective implementation of no work, no pay by the Federal Ministry of Health. The NEC found it incomprehensible that health workers whom the federal government always forced to go on legitimate strike to press for implementation of what they call our collectively bargained agreements due to its own failure to keep to agreements still goes on to withhold the salaries of health workers under the claim that were in essential services, while turning a blind eye to the same policy when members of the Nigerian Medical Association, NMA, who are also in essential services, go on strike and get paid. All right, so I'm sure that there will be a rebuttal to this at some point. But there should be, because nobody wants to feel like somebody else is better than them, or someone is playing favoritism when it comes to certain laws, or that certain laws don't apply to certain people. So we wait for the explanation on this, because if this is the case, then the workers definitely do have a bone to pick here. All right, let's move to let's take more stories from the Punch newspaper. Right now, there's still quite a number of interesting stories. The quarrel Sunday Igboho peaks with Pastor Adeboye. That's in the Punch newspaper this morning. And it says, it talks about the ethnic and religious divisions in the country and some religious leaders contributing to it. The Sultan of Sokoto and the president of Can said so at the latest meeting of the National Interfaith Body, which they head. And it says that several times that championing an ethnic cause can be the business of a religious leader. Why? The founders of the two major religions rallied mankind, not just members of their race or tribe. However, some religious leaders have allowed, according to this piece, have allowed themselves to be derailed by ethnic champions who make them feel they commit a crime by not partaking in ethnic-focused activities, such as implied in a recent statement credited to the man known as Sunday Igboho, who became popular lately when he stepped into the gaps that our security agencies left in Nigeria's southwest. Igboho was quoted in the newspaper saying he wouldn't commiserate with the general overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Pastor Iye Adeboye, over the loss of his son. He further stated that this was because Adeboye didn't utter a word regarding his ethnic-focused activities among the Yoruba people. Well, what this means is that Igboho takes exception to the fact that Adeboye hasn't joined him to, like some religious leaders do in other places, demonize members of tribes other than theirs because of the activities of a few elements, this story says. All right, I'd like to know what your thoughts are. And what your thoughts are on this piece. Share with us. You can text and you can tweet. You can tweet to us at Splash FM 1055, and if you're on Twitter. But if you want to send in a quick text, you can text into 0706 949 3000. 0706 949 3,000. All right, there's more news stories in the papers that we'll quickly take. Illegal oil deals. Federal government fails to recover $69 billion loot in American banks. That's in the papers this morning. Father of NAF airman. When I prayed for my son on phone, I didn't know he would die next day. It's very sad, stories coming out, because a lot of people have taking issues with a lot of media houses and blogs that have reported, especially when they reported the death of the chief of air staff, and how they only mentioned the name of the chief of air staff and then they said 10 others. But of late we've been hearing a lot more about some of the others in quote, with their families speaking out. I remember reading from the wife of one of the pilots. He got married in February, just newlyweds, barely newlyweds. Got married in February, and she talked about how, he had a dream the day before the accident happened, and had the dream that he was going to be in a crash and he would die, and they had prayed together. The next day he had gone to certain places, and he had called her to say, hey, things are fine, only for him to get a directive that he was flying, to Kaduna. And then, the wife heard that, the plane had crashed. And then here we're hearing of a father. Any parent's worst nightmare is to hear or to have to bury their children. So, commiserations, and our hearts go out to these families, not just to the chief of air staff, but to everybody involved, everybody who's lost anybody during this crash. We pray that God gives them the fortitude to bear the loss. All right, schools declare emergency holiday. Others shot residents panic over IPOB sit at home. That's also a headline in to the papers today. Don't forget that at 8 o'clock, what we'll be doing is looking at the papers throughout the week and picking out some of the top stories. So make sure to join us then. Okay, let's move back to the Tribune newspaper, where there's more headlines to reel out for you this morning. In papers, Olu of Warri designate for coronation August 21st. Also in the papers, yes, we've heard this before already, I'm sure. This new one broke very early on last night, or late last night, or early this morning. President Buhari appoints Yahaya as new Chief of Army Staff. The Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, has appointed Major General Farouk Yahaya as the new Chief of Army Staff. The announcement was contained in a statement issued on Thursday by Brigadier General Onyema Nwachukwu, the Acting Director, Defense Information. Prior to his appointment, Major General Yahaya was the General Officer commanding one division of the Nigerian Army and the incumbent theater commander of the counter-terrorism, counter-insurgency military outfit in the Northeast, codenamed Operation Hadinkai. All right, so that's news story that's definitely important for you to know. All right, let's move to the Vanguard newspaper and track some more headlines for you this morning. Here in the Vanguard, Constitution Review and Excise Infertility, waste of time, public funds, says Afenifere. Well, what are your thoughts? A lot of people have been championing, and calling for the review of the Constitution. Some people have said that we cannot make headway in Nigeria as long as we're still, using the current constitution, and that we do not review it. Well, the Yoruba social political group, Afenifere, has described the ongoing process of amending the 1999 constitution as an exercise in futility that cannot achieve any meaningful result. Secretary General of the group, Chief Shola Ebiseni, said this in an interview with newsmen in Akure. Ebisheni was responding on why the group did not submit a memorandum to the Senate Committee on the amendment of the Constitution, which ended its public hearing in Akure, Ondo State capital, yesterday. The former commissioner in the state said that Afenifere believes in the advocates' fundamental restructuring of Nigeria for the reinvention of a federal constitution as the agreed principles of governing Nigeria and its diverse ethnic nationalities by our founding fathers, which will ultimately replace the imposed 1999 unitary constitution. Amending the constitution is an exercise in futility and a waste of time and public fund. We cannot claim to be a federal republic and be governed by a unitary constitution, he says. We cannot claim to be in a democracy and be governed by a constitution that does not emanate by the people. Amendment will not cure the anomalies. You cannot put something on anything and expect it to stand. It says every session of the two arms of the National Assembly since 2007 has embarked on the same jamboree of constitutional amendment, spending public funds on public hearings without any result. The National Assembly is part of the issue to be determined in the process of restructuring and cannot legitimately be the judge in such exercise. Ebisheni said that this is evident from the condemnation of the declarations of the Southern governors in support of restructuring by both the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, while the committees as agents of the National Assembly were gallivanting around the country. From nothing, nothing comes. Ex nihilo nihil fit. All right. Well, let us know what your thoughts are, what your comments are on this. Okay, I've got just one more minute. So also in the papers this morning, Children's Day, it's embarrassing. Pupils still sit on floors. Learning under trees in 2021. It is truly embarrassing. I mean that in 2021 we still have these problems, and I'm sure especially in public schools. I remember I was telling somebody who lives out of the country, and I was in a meeting and we're talking about how expensive private schools can be, and this lady was talking about how aren't there free schools in Nigeria. And I chuckled, and it was embarrassing to have to, educate her on how much public education in Nigeria has deteriorated, to the point where, and I mentioned, where pupils sit on floors. And it's sad that that's still something we have to talk about in 2021. Well, I haven't got too much time left. Here's a quick headline before I go. Why Buhari didn't attend burial of COS others, that's from the presidency, and I'm sure it's something we will talk about at 8 o'clock when I'll be joined by Charity Jerome and Oluwaseun Akinola on the Breakfast Gang at 8 o'clock. So make sure to be a part of that. I'm Ronke Giwa Onafuwa. We'll take a pause right now with the headlines, and then Sports Bank will be coming up at 7:30, and then we'll be back at 8 o'clock. Don't go away.
Splash FM 105.5.
When we say we're committed to giving you more, here's what we mean. We mean going the extra mile to ensure you have the best customer experience. In fact, if you make an instant transfer and it fails, we will reverse it in